Excited about today's show, folks. I get a big kick out of it when the guests come back. So that tells us a couple of things. Either one, they had a really good time and wanted to come back, or more importantly, as is the case today, they have a lot more information than we could get into one segment, and we're welcome to have them back. Today is one of those days, and for any of you out there in the business world, chances are you have a sales department. You may have a department of one, you may have a department of many. But if you don't have people that are trained to do sales the right way, you might as well not even have a sales department, because if you're going to do it, you need to do it right, and sometimes you need to bring in a professional to help. That's where we are today here on All In. Let's get with our guest right now. His name is Frank Gustafson. Sorry, Frank. Strategic Training Partners. Frank, welcome to the show today. You're going to have to come back so I can get that last name next time.
You'll get it eventually, brother. It's all good.
Hey, welcome back.
Hey, it's easier backwards. Nos Fat Sug.
Okay, we'll worry about that one next time. But I got the Frank. Give me props for the Frank.
Perfect.
I want to recap just a little bit, Frank, on the off chance people didn't see you last time. Yeah. So you have a sales training company here in the North Texas area, but prior to that, you have your own extensive background in sales yourself.
Yeah, I've owned a couple businesses, and when you own a business, obviously the number one priority is selling. You got to get some revenue, and then spent 35 years in sales leadership, and as an entrepreneur. And
you finally decided, I've been doing this long enough. Let's see if I can impart my wisdom on others.
I'm passionate about it, and it's like when I'm in front of salespeople and sales leaders, it's like being at home with a robe and slippers on. It's just comfortable. I love it.
There's an old adage that doctors make the worst patients. Do sales trainers make the worst potential customers? When a salesperson is talking to you, do you just kind of mess with them?
We're always thinking. I don't know that I mess with them so much, but we're always thinking about, what are they thinking? Why would they ask that question? Why would they go there?
But do you offer them advice after the sales call?
I try not to.
Yeah, I bet it's got to be hard for you, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, last time when we were chatting, we talked about sales and about how poor salespeople can just tank a company. I want to get into that a little bit more. How can they tank the company, and more importantly, what are some quick fixes before you get into in-depth, but some ways you can repair that?
Yeah, so I thought about this today, and I thought about what we could talk about that the viewer could get the most bang for the buck in 10 minutes. What can we talk about that is going to give them the most value? And one of the things that I think people struggle with, well, let me ask you this. Have you ever walked into a meeting with an agenda in your mind and found out the other person's agenda was totally different than your agenda?
Absolutely, and you're just battling each other in that limited space, and nothing gets accomplished.
Have you ever assumed or thought you had a 1 hour meeting, and you walk in, and the high D personality says to you, Brian, you know what? Something came up. You got 15 minutes. Go.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
It's very much a struggle.
We're not on the same page.
Well, it's okay. So so what I'm going to take away from that is get on the same page even before the meeting starts.
Well, yeah, I think that every meeting that you have, in fact, most interactions with other human beings, you need to kind of have a set of ground rules. I know that we use something called an upfront contract, and my wife sets an upfront contract with me constantly. And if I violate it, I hear about it. But I think that when you go into a meeting, there's really 5 things that you need to be perfectly clear about. What is the purpose of the meeting, right? How much time do we have? What date, what time, where are we going to meet? That's got to be clear. What is the other person's agenda? They care about their agenda more than they care about your agenda. What do you need to? What do they need to cover during this meeting that is going to make the biggest difference for them? So their agenda. It makes them feel like they're in control of the meeting too. And then what is your agenda? If you don't have an agenda, if you can't come to the table with a purpose, a set of parameters around a time, etc., with their agenda and your agenda, and then finally, what is a clear outcome? What is the clear result that has to happen out of this meeting? If you don't have that, you're not a salesperson. You're a professional visitor.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have to plan your next visitation to try to accomplish something.
Yes.
Frank, do you think that these agendas should everyone have the agenda prior to the meeting more so than just walking in, taking a seat, and there's the agenda?
I think so. I think everybody's got to be prepared, because I know that my needs for a meeting, there's typically something that the prospect or the client or whoever I'm meeting with needs to be ready to talk about. They need to come with some information. So absolutely, I always put that up front. In my world, I put it in we talk about it when we have our initial conversation, when we set the meeting, and then I put it in the calendar invite.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Just
all there.
to remind them of nothing else.
Absolutely.
All right, well, in your world, like all of our worlds, things have changed here in the last few months, and
Yeah.
a lot of these meetings are no longer in person. They're Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
So do the same things go, or are there even some more stipulations that need to be involved with that?
I think the same things are involved, but I think it's easier when we're on a Zoom call.
Really?
Yeah, because I think that as salespeople, we're intimidated to bring notes into a meeting and to review notes and to talk off of notes. It makes us feel, and we might think that it makes us seem less professional. When I'm on a Zoom call, I can have 4x6 cards taped all the way around my monitor.
Nice.
I've got all my notes right there. I think it's easier to do it when you're on a Zoom call.
I totally agree with that, but for a lot of people who aren't used to working from a home environment, there's oftentimes some distractions that come through, the dog's barking or the kids crying or something. So I think from that standpoint, you need to make sure that you put together a professional environment, your bubble, if you will, just as if you were at an in-person meeting, so other things don't pop in.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think that the kind of the converse on that, Brian, is being real. If a dog barks in the background, hey, guess what? You're a human being.
Yeah,
You're not a robot.
that's fair.
I think it makes you. I think it makes you seem more real. I've got a couple of beagles that are constantly knocking at my door.
Well, I think in addition to making you more real, it makes you more relatable.
Yeah.
And honestly, as a lifelong sales guy myself, you're always looking for that foot in the door, if you will. You say, well, what kind of dog do you have? You might take a short pause to relate to them and talk about something else to continue to build that relationship, because as we've talked before, the relationship marketing is everything. You got to sell yourself before you can sell your product.
I can't tell you how many Zoom calls I've been on where a grandkid comes in and gives Nana a kiss. It's just real.
Yeah.
It's life.
Well, it is life. And I'm curious, when you're training salespeople these days, do you have a separate Zoom training agenda, if you will, for some tips to people that aren't used to that?
I don't necessarily. I think that the key these days, the keys under COVID are to over-communicate. You got to over-communicate. And part of that has to do with the agenda for your meeting, the upfront contract, the ground rules for your meeting. So I believe that in this day and age, over-communication is probably more important than anything.
Well, over-communication to the point to where people understand what you're talking about. And you don't need anything confusing. When we started today, if you walk into a meeting without an agenda, everybody's confused from the get-go, and probably they're not going to be very happy with you.
We call it mutual mystification. And when there's mutual mystification, nobody's needs get met.
Yeah.
The prospect's needs don't get met. Your needs don't get met as a salesperson. Your company's needs don't get met. Nobody's needs get met, right?
Well, I mean, you ideally want to have a win-win situation, but you might end up with a lose-lose situation in that case.
Absolutely.
Where nothing happens.
Yeah.
You and I were chatting off the air, and I got to squeeze it in there just because I like it. I've actually known people that own businesses before who you're trying to talk to them about the importance of sales and the training and everything, and they'll actually say, well, yeah, but what if I train somebody and they leave? And then the answer is, what if you don't train them and they stay?
Right.
That's what your whole business is built around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's behaviors, attitudes, and techniques. You put those three together, you multiply those, and you come out with your batting average. And anything that you can do to tweak your batting average, the difference between a baseball player that's batting 300 and a baseball player that's batting 275, what's that, $1 million a year, maybe more? I don't know. It's a lot. Well, having efficient and effective meetings every single time with everyone you meet raises your batting average. Makes a huge difference.
Makes a huge difference to the bottom line, business owners. So, and again, it doesn't matter if that's an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting. You've got to be prepared, have the agenda set.
Absolutely.
Frank, great chatting with you as always. Appreciate you coming in with us. And I'm really so happy to have someone with your sales background now actually imparting your wisdom to others.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
Folks, as always, thank you too. We appreciate you being here. Don't leave. We'll be right back with some more.